This one here is another watercolor, and I think it shows, it's quite an old painting, but it shows that I actually enjoy design within work and I love color. So the design and the color are as important as the actual picture to me. I had great fun with doing this painting. I did this at a workshop in Hatton. I was in a group called the Heart of England Art Group, and we had somebody come and do a demonstration for us. And then we were all given huge big pieces of paper, which were put on the floor. And you can see in the painting, there's some white swirls. Those white swirls are just done with wax crayons to act as a resist, so that you got some light into your painting. And then she put some fruit and veg on the floor and you just went for it. And I really, really enjoyed that sort of experience. I'd never had that experience before, and it was great fun. This is going back 15 years or more. At the base of this painting, I've also used ink. So I do like to use different formats of media in paintings. We then moved we moved from Leamington 10 years ago to Princethorpe, so we could have some space to do a few more things as hobbies. Michael, his music, and myself, art. I retired 10 years ago and, well, mostly retired. I did some teaching in nursing for a few years after that, but I retired from my main job. And when we moved to Princethorpe, we knocked down some walls and made the studio. And because I was out in the country, I started to paint a lot of trees because I saw a lot of trees. So these trees are birch trees that are in Wappenbury Wood up the road. And you can see I don't tend to paint trees in the normal way. I like to use in the foreground here under the trees, I've used salt, I've used cling film, I've used different techniques to try and give more life and a different feel to the painting. Again, in this one, this is birch trees as well. I love birch trees for some reason, but I used a lot of splattering technique at the top of this painting. And again, the orange piece here, I used cling film on top of a couple of layers and scrunched it up to give a feeling of undergrowth, which I enjoyed doing. More birch trees. I did these, this is the sheep in the snow, and I really like this one actually. It's quite simple, but again, I use similar techniques, but for a different feel. This is a painting I did of some birch trees again, and this was done for stained glass design. I do like design work, and doing a painting for stained glass is quite different from doing a painting for a painting in itself. So you do have to change the way you paint. And I had that painting made into a lovely glass lamp, which I'm very pleased with. The lamp was made by Viv Hunt, and she has done open studios quite a few times, and she lives in Harbury, so quite close by. While we were up in the Hebrides, I met puffins for the first time, and that was absolutely wonderful. The Isle of Staffa, if anybody's been up there, is superb. It's got all the rock formation that matches the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. So it's the same sea formation, and it's all in stacks. And the puffins live at the top of that area, and they're fantastic little birds. They're much smaller than I thought they were going to be, and quite comical. So this painting I did, and somebody that bought one of them from me, a print, said that it made her feel like she felt when she first got back on her bike after a while. So quite wobbly. The technique here, again, I've used, you can see at the base of the painting, I've used salt and splattering wet into wet watercolor to give an effect. And again here, you can see the salt in the paint at the very bottom. You can produce really lovely shapes, but you never quite know what you're going to get. And I think that's part of the love of painting. I think sometimes you're never quite sure where it's going to end up. Puffins again. This time I had a go at lino cut. We had Eric Gaskell, who lives in Rugby. He came over to our studio and did a workshop for us. It was my birthday present from Michael, which was fantastic because I'd always wanted to have a go, and it was a really lovely time to do it. I've only done a few lino cuts, but it's something I'd like to try a little bit more of. So I'm going to try and get to one of Alex Almond's if I can. That's the puffins. And then I did one of sheep, because where we live in Princethorpe, and over the road from our house, there's a field of sheep. And so I thought, I've got to do sheep. This is Sheepdip Lane. So I did a sheep, but I do like design work, as I say, and I particularly like 1930s design. And this is what I tried to capture in the tree formation at the back. It's not like that over the road. I just made it up, but I enjoyed doing that. Back to the Isle of Skye. This shows more watercolor painting, where I've done the techniques using, again, cling film. I didn't use salt in that one at all, but I did use ink on a stick. The dark ink pieces are just ink using a stick. And you can see a tiny house at the bottom with telegraph poles and a wire, if you look closely. So these trees, more trees, I'm afraid, but these trees are behind Baddesley Clinton. And this is one of the first paintings I started to do more acrylic work, because I did a workshop with Judith Yates, and she showed me, you know, how to sort of use acrylic a little bit. I did an afternoon with her. That's Welsh Mountains. The colours weren't quite like that, but that was my take on the Welsh Mountains, because they're beautiful mountains. I actually sold this one from the Herbert Open a few years ago. Now there's one that I did following Judith Yates's workshop, using acrylic paint, but also using things like methylated spirits within the water to give distinction and reflection. And you can see in that one, that's the edge of the boat. The pools at the bottom are methylated spirits within the paint again. I expect most of you can recognise this pier. It's a famous pier, St Ives, and more work that Judith Yates helped me sort of get through to. Another change of tack. I decided I wanted to try and do some paintings which were not actually real, slightly more abstract. And these 4 paintings are called Home. Within the paintings, there's a piece of favourite pottery from favourite potters. So for instance, I've got the top right-hand painting is a cup from Iris Eisenhart, who did Open Studios with us a couple of years ago. So, you know, it's nice to have favourite pieces. And you can see there's words at the bottom. The small pieces of words, I actually stained with tea to make them look older. And, and the words belong to Michael. He actually wrote these words, and they're part of his poetry. So that's why I called the series Home. Change of palette now. We had a lovely quick break in Iceland a few years back. And we spent 5 days there because our son, Sam, and his wife, Anna, went over to Iceland to do baking and cooking. And we had a few days with them. And the scenery there was very different, quite stark. The colours were quite pale. And there's quite a different feel, I think, to the painting. And I used a similar palette for a watercolour picture. During lockdown, the other thing that really emotionally impacted on me was the quietness, because you probably realise, well, you will realise if you come over, is we live near a main road. And that's the only downfall I particularly find with where we live, because the road can be quite noisy, but during lockdown, it went lovely and quiet. And the birds' song was tremendous, absolutely tremendous. So with that effect on me, I thought, right, I'm going to paint all the little birds from my garden onto my porch wall. So I did. So that's just inside my door, and it'll stay there forever. You know, whoever after us moves into this house may get rid of it, but I'm not getting rid of it because I love the little birds and I enjoy doing that. Back to trees. We had some blustery walks, and this was a blustery walk we had in Hidcote Gardens. And I did a watercolour of the trees there. This was last autumn. And this tree here impacted a lot emotionally on me as well, because this tree no longer exists. HS2 has destructed a lot of our countryside. And this is the Covington pear tree, which was nearly 300 years old, and it was destroyed for HS2. And I find that really sad. So I wanted to do a nice painting of it, so I did. During lockdown, I think one of the experiences that we all want is freedom, and we haven't had freedom. And I painted this of my granddaughter up on the Burton Dasset Hills, flying her kite. And to me, it gives a lot of freedom feel, because you need to be out and being able to do what you want to do. This is a lockdown picture again. This is a lane that's just from our house. You can walk up here. It's called Burnthurst Lane, and it leads to Wappenbury Woods. So this is a watercolour. And this is my most recent painting. Well, not quite my most recent painting, but within the last month, I've painted this boat, which Michael and I did manage to have a weekend in Suffolk between the lockdowns last year. We went in our van and stayed on a campsite, which was very quiet and really nice. We didn't know Suffolk, but we had a really nice time. And this is one of Michael's photographs I decided to paint. And it's in acrylic, and it's quite a large painting.